They thought he was just another washed-up actor. Homeless, alone, easy to erase. They threw murder charges on him and thought no one would care. But what they didn't know was who he really was. Because Keanu Reeves wasn't just another name. He had the proof, the files, the names. And with one upload, he exposed them all. Comment, justice. If you believe the truth can still win, share this if you've ever felt like the system was built to silence people like us. Let's begin. The smoke clung to the dawn like it didn't want to let go. Even as the last embers flickered out and the fire trucks pulled away from the scorched frame of Rosewood Haven, the air still reeked of melted plastic and something far worse: loss. Yellow tape fluttered weakly around the blackened shell of the youth center. It had been a safe place for so many, the only place for some. Now, it was a ruin. And someone had to answer for it. That someone sat on a metal bench, his hands cuffed in front of him, head bowed, hoodie scorched at the sleeve. Keanu Reeves didn't speak. He hadn't since they'd found him in the alley behind the center, sitting alone in the dark, his eyes fixed on nothing, his hands streaked faintly with dried blood. He looked like a ghost, alive, but not really there. The officer across from him, a young deputy named Harris, shifted uneasily. He kept glancing down at the file folder in his hands, as if trying to reconcile what he read with who he saw. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered under his breath. "Excuse me?" asked the older detective beside him. Detective Carla Mendez, veteran, practical, and unimpressed by names. Harris swallowed. "It's just, he's Keanu Reeves." "And?" Mendez snapped. "Doesn't mean he didn't do it." The evidence, on the surface, was damning. A blood-stained sleeve, confirmed to match the victim. No alibi. Surveillance footage, though grainy and poorly lit, showed someone resembling Keanu entering the center late at night. And now, Noah Benton, 15 years old, the brightest kid in the robotics club, was dead. They'd found his body near the back office, curled like he'd been trying to protect something. Noah's grandfather, Samuel, had shown up before sunrise. He stood beyond the tape, fists clenched, jaw shaking. He hadn't asked what happened. He'd only asked one question. "Did Keanu know my boy was there?" When they told him yes, he closed his eyes and said nothing else. Inside the precinct, Keanu finally looked up. His eyes were hollow, but alert. Not defiant, not panicked, just tired. "I didn't kill him," he said softly. Mendez raised an eyebrow. "Then what were you doing there after hours?" Keanu looked away. "Noah was helping me back up some files. The kids, they were building something, a new AI module. He stayed late sometimes." "Without permission?" she pressed. Keanu hesitated. Then simply, "He believed in it. I believed in him." The room went quiet, and then Mendez dropped the folder on the desk with a thud. "Surveillance footage. Blood. No alibi. The fire started just after midnight. You were there. You were seen. Until we hear otherwise, Mr. Reeves, you're our only suspect." He didn't argue. But just before they led him away, he turned to her. "I need to make a phone call." "To your lawyer?" Mendez asked. Keanu shook his head. "No. To the man who knows exactly what this fire was meant to erase." And with that, the match was struck. In a corner office on the 20th floor of the Justice Department, the sun glinted off a wall of polished awards. The room was clinical, almost surgical in its design. No family photos, no clutter, just order. Luther Raines sat behind his desk, hands steepled beneath his chin, eyes fixed on the live news feed playing silently on the screen. The headline crawled across the bottom. Keanu Reeves arrested in connection to deadly community center fire. The press hadn't started frothing yet. That would come soon enough. His aide, young, eager, and tragically unaware, stepped into the room. "Sir, the deputy director wants a statement draft ready for morning briefings. And there's a call on line 3, prison intake line." Raines didn't flinch. "Name?" The aide paused, reading from a printed slip. "Keanu Reeves." Raines leaned back slowly, fingers tapping once on the desk. Then, with no expression, he picked up the receiver. A long silence. Then a voice, quiet even, came through. "They used the boy," Keanu said, "just like you warned they might." Raines didn't reply. He let the silence sit, heavy. "I told Noah to hang on to it," Keanu continued. "The data's out there now. You know what's coming." "You shouldn't have gone back," Raines said flatly. "Not after what we buried." "This isn't about me," Keanu said. "You know that." Raines's jaw clenched, but his tone stayed cold. "You're a ghost, Keanu. You were never meant to be seen again. You walking into Rosewood gave them the perfect excuse. A dead boy, a fire, a washed-up actor with a savior complex. You gave them everything. I gave them the truth." "No," Raines snapped. "You gave them a reason to erase you." Another silence. Keanu's voice lowered. "I'm calling you first out of respect, but I'm not asking for help." Raines's voice turned to steel. "You're already dead. You just don't know it yet." The line clicked. He hung up. Raines stood slowly, walked to the window, and looked out over Washington, D.C. Below, the city buzzed in ignorant tranquility. The machine was humming. And Keanu Reeves, of all people, had just jammed a wrench into its gears. Behind him, his phone buzzed again. A secure line. He answered. "Reeves made contact," he said. A voice on the other end replied, low and raspy. "And the flash drive? We don't have it yet." Another pause. "Then bury everything," the voice said. "Erase him, erase the boy, erase the center, burn it all." Raines stared out the window, his reflection cold against the glass. Already started. In a detention cell hours away, Keanu sat motionless. The phone hung limply from his hand. He closed his eyes and breathed once, slowly. He knew what that click meant. He wasn't just fighting for his freedom now. He was fighting to bring down the man who built the prison around him. And that man wore a government badge. Samuel Benton was not a man who cried. Not during the war. Not when his wife passed. Not even when his knees gave out and the VA told him they'd circle back about treatment. But this broke something inside him. He sat on the floor of Noah's bedroom, surrounded by empty notebooks, loose wires, and a half-built drone the boy had been tinkering with for weeks. The room smelled like burnt plastic and citrus detergent. There was a framed photo of Noah and Keanu Reeves on the wall, both grinning beneath a banner that read, "Rosewood Hackathon Finalists." Samuel's calloused fingers trembled as he opened the backpack Noah had carried that final day. Inside, a hoodie, an unopened juice box, and a flash drive. It was black, nondescript, taped to the bottom seam like it was meant to be forgotten or hidden. He sat up straighter. The label on the side was faint, but legible. RWH internal, for KR only. He plugged it into his ancient laptop. The fan wheezed like it was breathing its last breath, but the screen flickered to life. First folder, blueprints. Second, emails, Florence District redevelopment. Third, Noah, if anything happens, voice memo. Samuel clicked the last one. Keanu's voice came through, low and steady. Hey kid, if you're listening to this, then something's gone wrong. If I didn't make it back in time, keep this safe. These files, this isn't about me. It's about what they're doing to this neighborhood, to all of us. They don't want lights or tech or empowered kids in this zip code. They want the land, and they'll burn anyone to get it. Stay low. Trust your grandfather. He'll know what to do. The recording ended. Samuel stared at the screen, stunned. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he leaned back and exhaled, slow and ragged, like air had been trapped inside his chest since the fire. He remembered now. Noah had mentioned something strange. A man in a suit asking questions about building permits. The center's director was acting nervous. Keanu pulled Noah aside, talking in hushed tones. He hadn't paid attention. Why would he? He was just a tired old man with a grandkid who liked robots. Until now. Samuel copied the files onto a separate drive, then printed the emails. Land contracts, city memos, an internal DOJ directive signed by Luther Raines himself. Authorize urgent condemnation of Rosewood Haven. Expedite acquisition for strategic development under Wexford Prime Holdings. Strategic development. Translation: evict the poor, build condos, and silence the noise. Samuel stood slowly, knees aching. He didn't know who to trust. The system? Broken. The law? Bought. But maybe. He reached for his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in 10 years. It rang twice. Then a voice answered, sharp and familiar. Isla Navarro. Samuel's voice cracked. You still chasing ghosts? She hesitated. Depends who's calling. I've got proof, he said, of a fire they wanted and a boy they needed gone. There was silence on the line. Then, where do we meet? They met at a diner on the outskirts of town, one of those places with cracked red booths and a jukebox that hadn't worked since Clinton was in office. Isla Navarro was already there when Samuel walked in, her laptop open, fingers flying over the keyboard like they were chasing time. She barely looked up. You're late. Samuel eased into the booth with a grunt, clutching a weathered messenger bag like it was something alive. Wasn't sure you'd actually come, he said. Wasn't sure you were still breathing, she shot back. 10 years since you went off-grid. I figured you were feeding pigeons and watching cable news. I was. Then they killed my grandson. That shut her up. He slid the flash drive across the table. She stared at it for half a second, then plugged it into her system. As the files loaded, her face shifted. First confusion, then shock, then something colder. These are DOJ internal memos. He nodded. Emails, land contracts, Raines' signature, Jesus. She scrolled further, eyes narrowing. And the video? This can't be right. Samuel leaned forward. That the surveillance footage from the night of the fire? No. Isla clicked a few more times. That's the original footage, the one they showed at trial. It was cut, blurred, timestamp removed. But here? She clicked play. The diner fell silent. Keanu appeared on the screen, grainy but clear enough. He was locking the back door of Rosewood Haven. Timestamp: 9:14 p.m., 3 hours before the fire started. Next to him, Noah. The boy smiled, handed him a small box, likely the same drive Samuel now carried. Then Keanu leaned down and said something to him. The audio didn't pick it up. But Isla read lips. "Take care of it. I trust you." She closed the laptop. "They framed him." Samuel nodded. "Deepfake?" Isla frowned. "Not exactly. They used real footage from an old security cam, but spliced it with a CGI overlay, one that matched Keanu's movements from a scene in John Wick 2. I ran facial geometry analysis, subtle inconsistencies around the jawline. Whoever did this, government-level software." "Rains," Samuel muttered. "He didn't just want the land. He wanted Keanu out of the way." Isla stared at him. "Why? He's an actor." "No," Samuel said softly. "He used to be more than that. Before fame, before the beard and the suits. Keanu worked Black Ops for humanitarian corridors during the early 2000s. He and Rains used to run covert extractions together in Lebanon, Sudan, Romania, until Keanu walked away." "He walked away," Isla echoed, "and started building youth centers." "And Rains," Samuel said bitterly. "He started buying silence." A pause. Then Isla leaned back. "Well," she said, "this is no longer a story." Samuel frowned. "It's not?" She smiled, razor sharp. "It's a war." The courthouse loomed ahead like a stone carcass, sleeping under flickering street lamps. Its windows were dark, silent, watchful. Samuel stood at the edge of the lot, his breath fogging in the cold night air, while Isla popped the trunk of her car and yanked out a black messenger bag stuffed with tools that didn't belong to a journalist. Lockpicks, thermal lenses, a scrambler. "You've done this before," he said. She didn't look at him. "Last time was in Belarus." He blinked. "You serious?" She glanced over, finally smirking. "Mostly." They moved quickly, cutting through a side alley that smelled like mildew and hot concrete. Isla knew where the blind spots in the cameras were. Samuel knew the back maintenance door from the days he worked court security. Between the two of them, they slipped in. Basement. Archive room. Server C12. Inside was a row of data towers, stacked like tombstones, humming faintly. Samuel moved slowly, his knees stiff, his lungs straining. Isla reached the console first, pulling up the archive database with a few taps. "Rosewood Haven," she whispered. "February 9th. Video chain. File hash ID. There." She inserted a blank drive. The download began. 1%. 2. The hallway light blinked. They froze. A voice crackled softly over a walkie-talkie nearby. Footsteps echoed. One guard, maybe two, getting closer. Isla looked at Samuel. "You still got your badge?" He pulled an old, cracked Florence County security ID from his wallet. "Will this fool anyone?" "Only if they're half asleep." Samuel stepped into the hallway, walking straight toward the sound. A flashlight beam hit him. "Hey, who the hell?" He raised both hands. "Maintenance. They sent me to pull thermal backups. Basement's running cold." The younger guard stepped closer. "We didn't get any..." That's when Samuel pulled it. Not a weapon. A thermos of coffee. He shook it lightly. "You want me to call Diane at dispatch and wake her up?" "Go ahead. But she's the one who yelled at me last time I skipped this run." The older guard, half asleep, annoyed, sighed. Let him go. They turned back. The footsteps faded. Back inside, Isla's drive beeped. Download complete. She yanked it free, tucked it into her jacket. Let's move. They retraced their steps, out the stairwell, through the alley, almost to the car, and then the headlights hit them. 3 black SUVs. Doors opened in unison. Men in suits stepped out. No badges, no names, just silence and the unmistakable shape of guns beneath coats. Samuel froze. One of them raised a walkie. Package confirmed. Orders? Then came the voice. Raspy and calm. Luther Raines. Retrieve the drive. Leave the old man. We don't need the body this time. Samuel shoved Isla. Go! What? No, go! He turned, charging toward the men with a roar that shook the alley. A flash, a crack, then silence. Isla didn't look back. She drove until her hands stopped shaking. Blood on her sleeves, a drive in her pocket, and a truth they had just killed to bury. Isla Navarro hadn't cried when they shot Samuel Benton. Not when she hit the gas so hard she nearly broke the pedal. Not when she reached the safe house in Atlanta and barricaded the door. Not when she plugged in the flash drive with blood still drying on her jacket. But now, hours later, in the flickering glow of her laptop, she stared at the video file Samuel had died for, and her chest cracked open. It was Keanu. Grainy, black and white surveillance. Timestamp, 9:14 p.m., a full 3 hours before the fire. He stood in the side hallway of Rosewood Haven, talking to Noah Benton. There was no anger, no shouting, no threat. Keanu knelt beside the boy, handed him a small box, presumably the drive, and smiled. The kind of smile that said, "You're safe, I've got you." Then came the line, clear, unmistakable. "Take care of it. I trust you." Isla paused the video. She checked it again. The metadata. The chain of custody. Every detail lined up. This was the real footage, not the one the court had shown, trimmed to make Keanu look guilty, not the deepfake that aired on cable news, doctored with footage from John Wick. This was the truth. Raw, inconvenient, and damning for the people who tried to erase it. She exhaled sharply and opened a new browser window. Time to burn the curtain down. At 3:42 a.m., the first post went live. Who really killed Noah Benton? What was Keanu Reeves trying to expose? Unedited footage, internal DOJ documents, emails signed by Luther Raines. Share before it disappears. Justice. For Noah, free, Keanu, Raines files. She didn't upload to the usual platforms. They'd be wiped too fast. She seeded it through encrypted community boards, whistleblower forums, and anonymous upload channels in Taiwan, Finland, and South Africa. And then she waited. It took 12 minutes. First, Reddit, then Telegram. Then the dam burst. By dawn, Free Keanu was trending in 38 countries. By 7 a.m., over 18 million views. By 8:03, the Department of Justice server crashed under public traffic. CNN tried to ignore it. Fox spun it. But the footage was too clear, too real. And the name on every contract. Luther Raines. The country wanted blood. In a federal holding cell in Alabama, Keanu Reeves sat on the edge of his cot, unaware, until the guard, normally smug, entered with trembling hands. You got a visitor?" Keanu stood, confused. "Who?" The guard didn't answer, just held out a tablet. On the screen, Isla Navarro, live streaming in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Behind her, thousands, holding signs, chanting his name, holding up photos of Noah, of Samuel. Keanu's eyes flicked to the corner of the video. Viewers, 11.4 million, and growing. For the first time since the fire, he allowed himself one breath of hope. The federal courthouse in Montgomery had never seen a crowd like this. The steps were flooded, reporters elbowing for position, students waving handmade signs, mothers holding up photos of missing sons. From above, it looked less like a protest and more like a reckoning. And at the heart of it all, under gray morning skies, Keanu Reeves walked up those marble steps. Not in cuffs this time, not flanked by armed guards, but beside Isla Navarro. He wore the same hoodie he was arrested in, still scorched at the sleeve, still stained faintly with Noah Benton's blood. Inside the courtroom, the air crackled. At the defense table sat Keanu, quiet and calm. Isla sat behind him, clutching a thick binder of evidence. Beside her, Ruth Halstead, the newly appointed federal judge, known for burning through corruption like wildfire, gavelled the court into session. "This court convenes today to review the conviction of Mr. Keanu Reeves," Judge Halstead said, her voice unwavering, "and to assess allegations of judicial misconduct, evidence tampering, and criminal conspiracy at the highest levels of this nation's justice system." No one moved. No one breathed. Then Isla stood. She approached the bench, placed the binder down like she was setting an explosive. "Your Honor, included in these files are the original surveillance footage from the night of the Rosewood Haven fire, forensic analysis of doctored evidence, and communications between former Attorney General Luther Raines and private real estate entities linked to Wexford Prime Holdings." She turned to face the courtroom. "There is also a list of 17 names, community leaders, youth mentors, and volunteers, silenced or prosecuted under fabricated charges, every one of them tied to neighborhoods Raines ordered cleared." A low gasp rippled through the gallery. On cue, the courtroom doors opened. A group entered, quietly but with undeniable presence. Survivors, family members, kids from Rosewood Haven. And at the very back, supported by a cane and 2 officers, hobbled in Samuel Benton. Alive. The courtroom erupted. Keanu stood, stunned. Isla blinked away tears. Samuel gave a half smile and raised 2 fingers in salute. "Told you I wasn't done yet." Judge Halstead banged her gavel. "Order! Order!" She turned to Keanu. "Mr. Reeves, the evidence before this court is not only sufficient to vacate your conviction, it exposes a coordinated campaign of state-sanctioned deceit. On behalf of the justice system of the United States, I offer what little this courtroom can provide: your freedom and a public apology." She paused. "But this isn't the end." Her eyes swept the gallery. "This is the beginning of a federal investigation into every individual, agency, and private interest that sought to silence the truth." The gavel struck. Keanu Reeves was free. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds as Keanu exited the courthouse. Reporters surged. Questions flew. But he raised a hand, not to silence them, but to signal something larger. Behind him, the crowd parted. A group of children stepped forward, kids from Rosewood Haven, holding tablets, notebooks, little robots. The future. And Keanu, voice steady, finally spoke. They tried to burn the truth. But the truth doesn't burn. They tried to erase him, tried to frame him, bury him, burn everything he built. But in the end, Keanu Reeves didn't just survive. He exposed a system built on silence and fear. And because one man refused to stay quiet, millions now have a voice. If you believe the truth deserves a voice, no matter the cost, comment justice below. Share this story with someone who still believes one voice can change everything. And follow for more stories that dare to speak louder than silence.